Welcome to the Money Over 50 podcast, brought to you by Dallas Davison and Michael Hogue from Money Over 50 Financial Advisors. This information is general in nature and does not take into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs. Therefore, you should consider whether the information is appropriate for you and your personal circumstances. If you require personal advice, please contact Money Over 50 Financial Advisors. Here are your hosts, Dallas Davison and Michael Hogue.
Welcome to Money Over 50. Today's topic, Ramsay's kitchen nightmares for retirees. Michael, your topic.
Oh, one of my favourite shows, Dallas. It's back on.
I'm excited for this because I know how you feel about Ramsay's kitchen nightmares.
So for those of you who haven't seen the show, it's Chef Gordon Ramsay, the brash-talking British chef.
Yeah.
And so Ramsay goes into failing restaurants who have contacted him, and he actually goes in, and the episode, each different episode is about him trying to turn around that specific restaurant that he's gone into, and there's always clashes with the head chef and all those types of things, and so it got me to thinking, because I've been binging on that lately at night. If you want to watch this, if you ever want to watch one of these shows, it's back on the it's the Channel 7 Plus, I think it is, app. Yeah. It's so you get the 7 Plus app. Yeah. And you can go through, and then there's a couple of different seasons you can actually watch Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares. So,
you got any favourites for the listeners? If you're only going to go and watch one, what's your favourite?
There's one called The Secret Garden. That's a brilliant one. I watched that last night. Yeah. It's season 1, I think it is, of the American version. So when he went to America. Yeah. And there's a French chef there, and the British and the French don't get on at the best of times, so they're having massive clashes. And Gordon, he's got some of the most successful restaurants around the world, and there's a reason why. Yes, but it's rocket science. No, so I actually went to one in London, and just to see the process-driven way that they look after you is fantastic. So. I had a thought. Well, while I've been watching these episodes, I thought, gee, these failing restaurants are very similar to failed investment plans or retirement plans that we've seen. Yep. So I thought we'd actually,
and I think that's probably a great analogy, because I haven't watched as many episodes as you, but as I understand it, there's often a situation where he comes in, and it might not necessarily be a failing restaurant. It could just be a restaurant that is very hit and miss and a bit all over the place. And so we often have this where people who come to see us for the first time, it's not as though their financial life's a mess. Like our typical client that comes to see us they've got themselves in a reasonably good situation. They've probably got good financial habits. It's just a matter of harnessing that and getting that process streamlined and getting it, making that run the best that it possibly can. And so, sometimes he has restaurants that he can really make a big difference to and turn them around and get them really humming along well. And other times I don't think he can't sort of get through. And so I think that's probably the thing that I'd say here is that when we're talking about some of these retirement plans that fail, some of these are people that we have sort of some of these are people that we've met with and that we haven't been able to help or work with on an ongoing basis because we just haven't been the right fit for them. And others are just the common mistakes that we've sort of seen people go to make that we've been able to help them not make. So I think that's probably another thing there that the commonality I notice is that, like you just said, none of the things that this bloke talks about are rocket science. It's often the mistakes that he stops those restaurants making that are the key. And that's the big thing that we see with our clients, is that it's not as though we're some super genius that has these great ideas that people have never heard of. It's really just the ability to put the right thing in place and stop a mistake happening is often more important than what you're necessarily doing there instead. So you've got a few of the different common mistakes here, the reasons that some of these restaurants have failed or that they are failing?
The first one, no visualizing success. So for the failing restaurant, what that means is that they don't know who they are or who they stand for.
Yeah, they've got no clear picture of what they're trying to achieve. Or
what they're trying to achieve, who their market is. Example, one that I watched just recently, it was an Italian restaurant and it was run by an Italian family.
Yeah.
And it was all different generations of this Italian family that were running this restaurant.
Yeah.
They were targeting fine dining.
Yeah.
And Gordon looked at the fine dining Italian competition in the area and he said, look, you're up against some really, really good chefs here.
Yeah, you're going to struggle.
What you guys need to be, you need to be the number one choice for family Italian dining in this region. So just framing that a little bit differently, setting up the decor to be booths instead of tables of two.
Yeah.
And taking that level of, I guess, pompousness out of it as well, made it more inviting, and they became a success.
Yeah.
In terms of attracting, they were the only, they were one of the only family Italian
friendly sort of places,
family friendly restaurants in that area. And, so it wasn't a big twist on what they were necessarily doing, but it was still Italian.
I think the language is that visualizing success. What that allows them to do is when they know what is it we're trying to achieve, we're trying to be the family, the number one choice for families to eat good Italian food in a relaxed atmosphere. What that allows them to do is every decision then flows off the back of that, and it makes it easy to make every other decision because you then go, okay, do we have tables of two or do we have booths? Well, we're trying to be the family option. We have booths. Do we have,
Do we have fine linen, white linen on the tables? No, we don't. We have paper.
Yeah, we have all those sorts of things where you just go. It then becomes you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. You just go, okay, this is what success will look like this is what success means to us. Every decision that we make is either getting us closer to that destination or further away. And so, how does that apply to aspiring retirees?
So for the and I don't know if I use the best terminology here, but you got my idea. Someone who has retirement on their mind. So for the failing aspiring retiree, one of the biggest mistakes that we see, Dallas, is that they don't work backwards.
Yeah.
So that they actually don't. Just like the restaurant, they don't visualize where they need to be in the future and what success would look like.
Yeah.
So for a failing aspiring retiree, they don't visualize or they don't even work out the numbers of the date specific dollar specific amount that they require.
Yeah.
And what I'm talking about there is they're 55 now, they want to retire at 63.
Yeah.
The first place to start is, okay, what would to have a successful retirement, what would that look like?
Yeah.
How much money would I need to? Yeah. How much money would my money have to make or generate?
Yeah.
As a rate of return, how much would I need to get to at that point in time? And they work backwards. So one of the biggest things that we do as financial advisors for our clients is actually is facilitate that conversation and actually then work backwards. So once we've got that number, we say, okay, well, the most logical way to get between here and that number is to do these things.
Yeah, and that's, I think, a great point because it's only once you have that target or that number in mind, and we use the example of if you want to retire in 10 years' time, so again, we've talked about this in great detail, but in very simple terms, it's not a complicated thing. It's not a huge mass problem. If you want $60,000 a year in today's dollars in 10 years' time, that's probably going to be about $80,000 a year because you need about 20 times that figure. Therefore, you need about $1.6 million. So you then have that's what that is. That's that target. So as I just said then in the example of the restaurant, it becomes a lot easier because you then go, okay, that's what that success will look like. That's the target we're shooting for. We want about $1.6 million. Now it gets easy because we then go, okay, what do we need to do between now and then to make that happen? And are we on track? And when we're making decisions of, how much do we need to save every year? We at least have a target in mind. It becomes very easy to make those decisions when you know what you're trying to achieve. Whereas before then, I think people, like you say, when they're not working backwards, they kind of look at it as, okay, well, see how much every week, and then I'll put some money away. And not only do they sometimes not put enough away, but even if they are putting enough away, they don't really have peace of mind whether they are or not. They're constantly stressing about it and thinking, should I be doing something different? So to me, that's a big one. That first issue is that not visualizing success, not thinking about what a successful outcome will look like, and then working backwards from there to work out what do I need to be doing every fortnight to make that happen.
And until that aspiring retiree has had the thought process and dedicate enough time to actually visualize what success would be in the future.
Yeah.
To be fair, they don't know if they're a fine dining person or a relaxed and casual.
This is
person.
my
so that's the
what's the podcast I did about? No one lives an extravagant lifestyle.
Yeah.
No one thinks. Everyone spends an amount of money that they think is normal, and the point is whether the amount that you need to retire is normal or not normal or average or above average or below average doesn't matter. It's only relative to you.
It's relevant to you whether you're going to be fine dining, relaxed and informal, cafe style, like whatever.
But whatever it is, you need to know what that is.
You need to know what that is, and that's visualizing success and then working backwards.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, just to cut in there as well, Michael. With that is that. We raise these questions with people, but we are well aware that most people don't know that. And so it's not a situation where when someone comes to see us for the first time, we say, how much do you think you'll need to spend in retirement? A part of our job is working through that with them. Not many people know what they want to spend every year in retirement.
No, they don't.
It's a part of a good financial advisor to help you work through that. It's not your job to come to us with the answers or to go to your financial advisor with the answers of how much you need. That's a conversation they should be facilitating.
Well, it's interesting because it takes Ramsay a while to work that out in these episodes as well. So he goes in and he doesn't straight away say you shouldn't be fine dining, you should be family.
Yeah.
He goes through and, so grandma and granddad work here. Their kids run the place. Yeah. They've got grandkids that are learning the trade and all that sort of stuff. Okay, you're a family.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think what really makes sense for you guys here is to be a family. A family-focused Italian restaurant as opposed to fine dining.
Yeah.
Number 2, no cleanliness. Yeah. So this is my absolute favourite part of every episode. Without the owner's knowledge, Gordon lets himself in early one morning and actually goes through the pantry, goes through the kitchen, and goes through the the walk-in fridge and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I just love his reactions because he swears a lot and he's just absolutely flabbergasted at the filth in there and the lack of standards. Yeah. So one of the things that stands out to me for every successful restaurant is that it has impeccable cleanliness.
Yeah.
They actually clean too much, but there's a reason why.
Yeah.
So if you spill something as small as one single macaroni pasta shell on the floor and don't clean it up, where does it all end?
Yeah.
All of a sudden there's a half a chicken breast on the floor, and then there's
there's
actually no
rotting food.
There's no line in the sand. Yeah. So the best restaurants and Formula One teams, for that matter, they have cleanliness to the point that you actually be able to eat your dinner off their kitchen floor or the garage floor. Yeah. And the reason is they draw a line in the sand, and that line is not one single macaroni pasta shells to be left on the floor.
Yeah.
And that's the standard.
Yes.
Now, every single failing restaurant on Kitchen Nightmares has no cleanliness standards. Yeah. Everything's filthy. It's got rotten food in there. Yeah. It's just completely devoid of any single process or standard. So the first thing that Gordon does with them, after abusing them and calling them a filthy, rotten pig, is that he gets all of the staff in and have a thorough clean out of the kitchen. They have a thorough clean out of the all of the pantry and the walk-in and all that sort of stuff. And he sets a process in place then for regular cleaning. So the clean out is the point here I want to make for aspiring retirees. Really, the second step after visualizing success is a thorough budget clean out.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that you don't necessarily like doing, Dallas, but you do it, is you clean out clean out your client's budget, and I do the same thing as well. Yeah. It's over time, people, and we're not immune to this.
Yeah.
Over time, people develop a messy kitchen, and what I'm talking about here is their budget and their expenses and the things that they lock themselves into, and the monthly subscriptions and all those types of things. People naturally develop a messy kitchen.
Yeah.
And the second step is a thorough budget clean out.
Yeah. And that's I think a key point there is that it's the clean out. What you're trying to do is build the habits of cleanliness, and in this case, it's build good financial habits. And as I said, most people come to us with relatively good financial habits, but pretty much everyone that we talk to says, well, yes, we might be. Most people are pretty good with their expenses, but could be a bit better, could sort of tighten it up. And this flows to me back to part one of this, is that once we've worked backwards and gone, okay, we know we need this much in 10 years' time in retirement savings. We know we need to, that's then our job is to help people calculate, okay, well, we need to be putting $600 a fortnight into superannuation to make that happen. That's to me like that standard of that's a non-negotiable. This has to happen every fortnight. Now we need to work out how to make that happen.
You're spot on there, because the fortnight that goes to zero, or that only drops to $300, that's like the chicken breast or the shell of macaroni falling on the floor and being left there.
Yep.
It's the line in the sand that you do not want to cross. You cannot cross.
And this is I guess similar to the podcast we just did recently of do or do not. There is no try. This is why I feel so strongly about, if you can't do that $600 a fortnight, then that's fine. We set a figure that you can do, and we might adjust your goals. We might say we will need to adjust your goals in future. But we pick something that you can, the standard that you can accept and that you are willing to do every time. And it's meant that you make to yourself and to us as your advisor to go, well, we are going to do this. We know we can do this. We're not going to pick some figure that is not feasible, is not achievable. We pick something we can do and we stick to that, and we build those habits. And then over time, we might tweak those habits, but the key there is we've got to start from that good foundation. And that's, like you say, a good kitchen has to start from that foundation of cleanliness. You made a note here that Formula One, I find that really fascinating. It's like, Formula One's an extreme example, but if you go to your mechanic, if you go to a really good mechanic, it's always immaculate. Not so much immaculate. There's obviously a bit of grease and stuff like that, but the floor is swept every single day. There's no crap left on the floor. There's no stuff sitting on a bench somewhere. There's tool cabinets, everything put away at the end of every day. Everything is in its place. They know where everything is. To me, it's a similar sort of thing when you're starting with your retirement plan. You've got to start from that place of cleanliness of, right, let's strip it back to what do we actually need to be doing, and how do we set things up so that we can consistently do that. And that cleanliness is the way that I guess I think of it.
Point 3, no automation or processes is probably an interchangeable word here. So one of the things that every single failing restaurant has in common is the lack of processes and the lack of automation. Handwritten dockets that get lost. Sometimes it's done this way, other times it's done this way. Yes. Sometimes this waiter looks after these tables. Yes. Other times they look after these tables over here. Yeah. They just don't have any single system in their automation. Yep. So for the failing aspiring retiree, one of the things that we look at is that they don't automate things. Yeah. Is one of the free things that you can do right now, which is so simple with internet banking, is that you can automate things. So you need to make that $600 a fortnight contribution to superannuation. Well, we jump in with their clients and actually set up from their internet banking a recurring fortnightly transfer of $600. Yep. That's set and forget. Yep. They have an almost certain chance of being successful. Yes. If that's automated. Yep. And they don't look at it again. Yeah. We know that they're going to get a rates bill in July, and it's going to come in again in January, and we know that their car insurance and home insurance and all of those types of things falls at around the same time. Now we know that going in, so we add all that up, add a 10% variance, divide that by 26 fortnights, set up a separate bills account, and every fortnight that they get paid, another $800 goes into that fortnightly bills account, automated.
Yep.
No one's logging in there
No.
every fortnight when they're getting paid.
Yeah.
Everyone listening would remember the old system when you got paid weekly or fortnightly, and you had to drive to your, you got a bill, and you had to drive around and pay your bills.
Yes.
So you actually you had to do all that. The good news is now there's none of that. You can just automate all that stuff to actually be set up in a separate account. So that's a system, that's a process, and it's an automated system and a process. And what I see with these failing restaurants, none of them have that.
Yeah.
And we see the same thing with
people's financials,
with people's financials as well. They're just not they're not automating these things. They need to be automated.
And that's I think to me the thing about this is obviously these fly in line, but once we've worked out what we need to do, we've worked out worked out what success looks like. We've worked out what we need to actually be doing. What's the minimum, that 600 a fortnight, for example. Okay. If we don't have that automation in place, we don't have that system in place, you just open the door to mistakes. And by mistakes, I mean, if you have to log in every fortnight and transfer that $600 a fortnight, things get in the way. Life happens. That's not. It's not going to be front of mind every fortnight. What you're doing is you're basically making it hard for yourself that you have to get it right every fortnight. Whereas by automating that, it only happens once. You get that set up, it happens automatically, and that's I think I noticed this with restaurants in particular. When I used to go to a cafe, or I got dragged to it a few times because it was next to where some mates lived, and every time I went there, it would drive me mad because every time you went, there'd be a different process for sometimes you'd order from the table, other times you had to go up, sometimes you'd pay at the start, sometimes you'd pay at the end, sometimes a waitress would come around and ask you for another coffee, sometimes you had to flag them down. It was just, and it put me on edge every time I went there because you go, I've now got to have in the back of my mind, again, I think they call this first world problems, but I just thought, if it feels like that for me, imagine the staff. Like imagine the management and the staff of that restaurant going, every week, what's going to happen this week? We don't know. It's going to be a free-for-all. We're trying to just get through it as best we can. Compared to, we go to Cactus Jack's, which is a local Townsville institution. I think there might be one near Brisbane, but I don't think it's across the country. But you go there, it's the same process, and it has been the same process for 20 years, is that you walk in, there's a person at the front door, they hand you off to someone who's your drinks waitress, they will take you, or waiter, they'll take you to your table, they take drinks, a separate person takes your food order. It's just so consistent every time, and when you go there what you're going to get, and the staff know what is expected of them. It's just there's just no chance for mistakes, and when a mistake does happen, which sometimes does, that it's just a thing that's sort of happened. It's not as frustrating because you go, okay, well that's life. Sometimes humans get things wrong, but it's not because there's no system, or this person thought the other person was doing it, or the internet was down, or whatever. There's never 20 different possible reasons for a mistake to be made, and I think that's what. I mean, we talked about this a little while ago with the automation thing. Is that extra 2 minutes at the end of a meeting that we have with our clients, we go, these are the things you need to do. Right, let's just jump on internet banking right now and do it. They're sometimes the most valuable 2 minutes, because then you just know that when we come back in 6 months' time and have this meeting again, it's that fortnightly transfer is going to have happened, because it can't not happen. It's happening automatically.
Look, it takes far more effort to undo it than it does to do it. Yep. So inertia then just allows that to happen.
Yep.
And very, very quickly our clients become used to that money going out.
Yep.
So it becomes harder for it not to occur.
Yes.
For it to occur.
Yeah.
Number 4, chopping and changing. Mm-hmm. So a failing restaurant, another common theme on Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares. They were an Italian restaurant, and then they became an Irish restaurant.
Yeah.
And then they changed again to Indian.
Yeah.
Or worse still, they've got all three themes on the one menu item, and the menu item and the menu is huge.
Yeah.
They don't do.
Yeah.
They're a jack of all trades. They're not the master of none. They focus on different things all of the time.
Yep.
We see that manifest itself for the failing aspiring retiree in changing investment strategies.
Yep.
I'm invested in a growth investment strategy.
Yep.
Markets are down by 37%. I'm going to chop and change that to cash now.
Cash.
And they just never know who they are or what they are or what their actual role is.
Yes. Yep.
This I'm going to digress a bit here. This reminds me of one of my favourite Seinfelds, the Babu Bhatt episode. Babu was a Pakistani who had emigrated to the United States, and he opened a cafe across from where Jerry lived. It was called the Dream Cafe, and he served contemporary American fare, classic British fare. All the foods that he was serving were things that he wasn't specially in, and he tried to cater to the widest possible audience and the widest possible customers. So Jerry went over there and felt sorry for him because he'd see him standing outside he'd see Babu standing outside the cafe. No one was sitting in there. So Jerry went over there and had some food there and came up with the brilliant idea. Babu, no one's coming because you're offering all these things, and there's other cafes that do that. It's occurred to me that if you opened a Pakistani restaurant, you're the only Pakistani restaurant in this neighborhood. Which was the right idea, but of course in Seinfeld, classic Seinfeld, he did that. Babu did that, and still no one came. And he spent all this money on rebranding.
So probably not a great analogy, given that it didn't work. But I think that's a good point. Is at least you then the way that I think of this with your money is that, as you said before, it's got a job to do. There's one purpose for that. You don't want to, and we spoke about this just in a most recent podcast about getting a good return. You have to approach this with the attitude of, right, this money, if I'm putting that, I've got that in my superannuation, I want it to grow for the next 10 years leading up to retirement, and then for my 30 years throughout retirement. I need to pick the investment strategy that is going to provide that for me for that 40-year time frame. You cannot get a year down the road and then look backwards and go, oh well, I got this return. My next door neighbour who did something completely different to me, he got a different return. Maybe I should be invested in what he's in, and then do that chop and change every year. You will cause yourself all manner of troubles there, both financially, because you'll just be you won't get the outcome that you want, but also just again you have no consistency of that. It's very hard to stick to a plan if you're making a $600 a fortnight contribution, but then every year you're completely changing your investment strategy and you're changing how you're approaching things and whether you're focusing on building up your superannuation or money outside of super, all those sorts of things. You're really diluting your message to yourself. So whereas if you say, right, this is the strategy, this is what I'm going to do, I've got a 10-year sort of target there that I'm looking at. I know what I need to do. By working back through these things, I know that I've worked out the steps I need to take. I just need to be consistent about that. And we need to track whether we are heading towards where we need to be or whether we need to change things a little bit. But there needs to be consistency of what it is, the investment philosophy, what we're trying to do over that time frame.
Number 5, they don't pick up the free money. So I'll tell you a story of how this is done well. I actually went to a restaurant called Maze, M-A-Z-E, with my wife in 2014 when we were traveling overseas. And we specifically went there because I wanted to see what a well-run Gordon Ramsay restaurant looked like.
Yeah.
And I was actually amazed at the way that they picked up free money and the processes involved. So right from the start, when we made a booking, we went there. It was, welcome, Mr. and Mrs. Hogue. Come right this way. We're going to seat you at your table. 2 cocktail menus were put out in front of us straight away with only 3 cocktails, so a choice of only 3 cocktails.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, would you like a cocktail?
Yeah.
It was,
which of the
please select a cocktail while you wait, just so you can relax. So what they did, I wasn't going to have a cocktail.
No, it would never have occurred to you to go.
They didn't ask me if I wanted one.
Yeah.
Without being forceful or rude, they had a way of suggesting that it was the done thing.
Your experience, yeah.
And because they only had 3 and not 13 cocktails, it was a quick decision. Yeah. Oh, this one stands out. I'll have this one. Yep. I'll have this one. Mm. Because they were only making 3 cocktails, they were back on our table within the minute.
Yeah.
So I imagine they had them partially lined up and ready to go. So we're relaxing.
Within a
Somalia will be with you in a minute to talk about your wine and food pairings.
Yeah, of course.
I wasn't going to have a bottle of it hadn't even occurred to me whether I was going to have a bottle of wine or not.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, here's I think I'm pronouncing it right, Somalia, isn't it? It's
I don't know.
Someone who matches your food and your wine together. So they were there.
Yeah.
Always the menu that they gave you had not much choice on it. You could get a wine list that had a lot more choice on it if you wanted to, but they were trying to make your decisions
simple. Yeah.
And so it was do you guys think you would like, you had your menu there, would you what stands out again with the menu items for the mains? There was only, I think, between 5 and 7 items. There wasn't. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't. Again, one of these failing restaurants. They have menus that they're trying to cook 50 different menu items.
Yeah.
So it was a really, really easy decision. To choose, because you could quickly choose what main you were going to have, and you could choose what wine you were going to have, and all of the entire experience, the people turning up at the right time, the right person turning up. Mm-hmm. Once the main was finished, someone didn't come and say, "Would you like a dessert menu?" Yeah, they actually walked around with a tray of these desserts, and they let you smell them. Yeah, and again, there was only 3 or 4 of them. Yeah, but Again, without being forceful or rude, it was an expectation that you were probably going to have.
Which,
a dessert.
Again, if someone says conceptually, do you want dessert? You go, no, thank you. If someone puts a chocolate cake in front of your face when you've had 4 glasses of wine and a cocktail, and do you want that? Well, of course I want that. It's sitting there in front of me now.
They'd got the quality and quantity just right for your main as well. So it wasn't, some of these failing places, they go big. So they serve these huge portions, waste a lot of food. They had the tastiest food, but it was the right portion. At the last bite, left you thinking, geez, I could have a bit more if something came, and all of a sudden here's the dessert and stuck in front of your face. So what I'm talking about here is picking up free money. So good restaurants pick up
run
free
through
money.
Those things there from right from the start, you had a cocktail that you probably wouldn't have even thought to have. So it's picked up $15 there. Yep. Then you've probably had 2 bottles of wine instead of 1 because the wine was right there and it was the right wine and you knew that it was going to be a great experience. So you had 2 bottles and they sold a bottle of wine they probably weren't going to sell. Then they sold 2 desserts at the end that they probably weren't going to sell. Those are all, they're free money for the restaurant. And within that as well, the main that you had, there's no wasted food. Here are the options. They know they can get their inventory exactly right because that's what you're going to have. They've only put in front of you the right amount of food. You're going to eat the whole lot. They're not giving you food that's going to get tipped out the back. So every step of the way there, they're just picking up that free money. And you finish that experience thinking that was really good value. None of it is things that you felt ripped off or that you felt like you didn't get value for money. It's just that from a business model perspective, they've tightened everything up there so that they are picking up every bit of that free money, every bit of that that experience that they possibly can.
Well, how many times have you been to a restaurant for listeners out there and you're enjoying yourself, you're having a drink and you finish your drink and you virtually have to flag someone down to come and take your order for another drink. And there's 10 minutes that goes between
Yeah.
when you actually want it and when it turns up
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
If you look at it from the point of view, so if you just look at a restaurant, even if 20 customers per day had an extra drink or an entree or a dessert,
Yeah.
even if that was only at $10 per head per day, you're looking at $200 per day of extra revenue times 365 days. It's $73,000 extra revenue per year.
Yeah.
And over 14 years, that's $1 million.
Yeah.
So, like, people never look at it in those perspectives. So we look at that again with we look at one of the key things, like the failing restaurant, the failing aspiring retiree is not picking up the free money.
Yeah.
And what we're talking about largely there are the fact that they're not putting in up to their 2 times $25,000 contributions to superannuation and claiming that contribution at 39% tax whilst only paying 15% on the way. And that's 24% free money.
Yeah.
That's
one bit of the free money.
That's one bit of the free money. There's spouse contribution that can be made for a spouse. There's government co-contribution. There's all these things. And where people fail is that they actually don't pick up that free money.
And that's a good example. To use just round numbers here, you might say someone comes in at 55 with $700,000 in superannuation, and they're on track for $1.4 million at age 65, and we calculate they need about $2 million. It sounds like a lot of money, that $600,000 gap that we're trying to bridge there, but often it's $200,000 of that just might be picking up the free money of the investment return. Their superannuation isn't working as hard as it could be.
As it could be, yeah.
We could be getting that, getting an 8% return rather than a 6% return, for example. So we've picked up that free money, and again, ASIC, if you listen to this, we know it's not free money. There's more volatility, yes, all the rest of it. But the point is, you're already a portion of the way there. Then we look at, okay, well, let's pick up $200,000 worth of tax savings along the way. Like you said, they're currently paying $30,000 worth of income tax. If we can bring that down to $20,000, well, then it's going to make a huge difference. So we can pick up $200,000 worth of tax savings. The last $200,000 can just be money that they're currently spending on things that they're not really getting value out of, and they'd probably rather put that into super and be able to travel more in retirement. So that's a trade-off they're willing to make about that. So all those things are not, it's what you're trying to do is just pick up all the free money. It's not a thing where you necessarily are trying to beat yourself up and try and flog yourself and make this as hard as possible to get where you need to be. It's just all those little things, getting them right. Picking up the free money is the great way to put it, to get you in the best position.
When you look at the difference that it makes in 1 year, it's the wrong way to look at it.
Yeah,
you look at it over 10 or 15 years, and you say, okay, I'm not bending over to pick up $5,000 or $10,000 a year. I'm bending over to pick up a paper bag with $100,000 or $200,000 or $300,000.
Exactly right.
Yeah, that's the way that it needs to be looked at.
Yeah,
just like the failing restaurant.
Goes.
Who looks at it? Oh, it's only
a cocktail.
Only 20 customers a day, and if they only spend an extra $10, what difference does that actually make?
Yeah,
it's $1 million over 14 years.
Yeah,
it's like $1 million over 14 years is the difference that makes. So
no, that's exactly right.
The quick recap. So. Failing restaurants, failing aspiring retirees. Number one, first mistake, no visualizing success. So the failing restaurant doesn't know what they stand for. They don't know if they're fine dining or if they should be family and relaxed and casual. The failing aspiring retiree doesn't actually take the time to think,
how much do I need to retire?
Whether they need a fine dining retirement or a relaxed and casual retirement. Where they need to be first before then backfilling and working backwards and working out a strategy for that. Number two, no cleanliness or no standards. So effectively, every failing restaurant is just filthy. There's no cleanliness at all. Every good restaurant, has impeccable cleanliness standards. The first thing is to do a thorough clean out of the kitchen. For aspiring retirees, the first step is a thorough budget clean out. The kitchen is dirty, or the budget is dirty, and that's for everyone. That's not just that's not just some of us. if you haven't looked at this, if you don't look at this every single year and do a clean out, and you haven't done that for a period of time, then you've got a dirty budget in there. And you in the second step, is to clean out. Number 3, no automation, or processes. So for the failing restaurant, it's just no processes in place. Sometimes it's done this way, other times it's done this way. For the failing aspiring retiree, they're not automating their contributions. They're doing it sometimes. What they need to do is set up that recurring fortnightly, if they get paid fortnightly, that recurring fortnightly transfer into their superannuation fund, and potentially also into their bill paying account. Number 4, chopping and changing. The failing restaurant, one week they're Italian, the next week they're Irish, the week after that they're Indian. For the failing or aspiring retiree, they're changing their investment strategies. They're doing it at precisely the wrong time. They're making mistakes. They're not sticking to their strategy. They're chopping and changing. Number 5, we just spoke about this, of course, so I won't go into too much detail, but it's not picking up the free money. So we love free money. It's one of our big sayings here. If money's going to be free, we're going to pick it up and take it. And that's going to get us a long way of the way to that success. So there it is.
That's I think a great analogy there that you've drawn, Michael. If you haven't watched Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares, jump on do it. It is actually a pretty good watch.
7+. So if you go to the 7+ app and watch it. My father-in-law thinks it's the worst show he's ever watched. I told him I watched it. He said, "I've watched it. That's the most dreadful show I've ever watched."
So if basically jump on, you'll either really enjoy it or you'll really hate it. You'll know within 10 minutes.
It's one of the favourites. Now, mind you, I love process. I love to see him go in there and turn things around and change the processes and systems and all those types of things. It's quite humorous in terms of the way that he talks to these people. We would never dare to talk to our clients that way. But,
It's
I really get a lot of
the
enjoyment out of the
British
show.
accent where they can get away with a lot of swearing and a lot of sort of really rude conversation without it coming across as a really terrible thing.
I agree.
Australians just can't do that.
No, exactly right.
Very good. Well, so there was five similarities there. Speaking of 5, if you can jump on your podcast player and hit the 5 stars button, if that's what you think of our podcast, we'd appreciate it a lot.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Money Over 50 podcast with Money Over 50 Financial Advisors. We look forward to catching up again soon.